This is investingnews.com. I'm Georgia Williams, and we're here at day 3 of the PDAC conference in Toronto. Joining me today is Jeff Wilson, President, CEO, and Director of Precipitate Gold. It's nice to see you, Jeff.
Thanks for having me.
How's the conference been so far?
So far, it's been very busy. It's been good. There's definitely a heightened energy and excitement with what seems to be the bull sort of commodity cycle that we're in, and most of the companies are cashed up and people are active on projects. So yeah, there's a real sense of optimism. I think more so than any other year that I can remember.
Yeah, it's a very exciting conference.
Yes, it is. Absolutely.
I was wondering if we could start with your ticker symbol and what exchanges you're on.
Absolutely. So we trade on the TSX Venture Exchange under the symbol PRG, and on the OTCQB exchange under the symbol PREIF.
Awesome. And you're a precious metals company focused in the Caribbean.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about that and what a dream destination it must be?
Yeah, it's a unique scenario in that most people don't think of the Dominican Republic specifically as a mining destination. They think of course, the resorts and holiday destinations. But it is, in fact, the country that hosts one of the largest gold and copper mines in the world, and certainly one of the top 5 in Latin America. So that's Barrick's Pueblo Viejo mine. So there is a mining history there, as much as a lot of people may not be aware of that. And in the recent decade or so, there's been an increased push in mineral exploration, looking to find more deposits, more mineralization throughout the country, because the country has been fairly aware that they need to diversify their economy away from just manufacturing and tourism. And they see mining, and specifically gold exports, as a real opportunity to diversify that economy. So they've been very pro-mining and supportive of the mining sector. And although there's only a handful of us that are there exploring, we think there's great opportunity there as well.
Yeah, it's really exciting. The company started the year closing a $6.5 million private placement. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Where are you planning on deploying that capital?
Yeah, that money will be added to the already sort of $3.5 million that we had in the bank. So we sort of come into the beginning of the year here with about $9 million in the bank. The majority of that is actually going to be spent on drilling. So the last 18 months or so, we've been very fixated or focused on sort of low-level work that is advancing targets, geochemistry, geophysics, relatively inexpensive work, but moving targets forward to get everything to a stage where the only thing left to do is drill. As it's turned out, the timing of those drill targets being prepared has coincided nicely with not only the financing that you just mentioned, but also, as I mentioned earlier, sort of a market that seems to be more favorable. And so all of that is lining up for us to deploy that capital into drilling on 2 different projects, and probably drilling somewhere in the ballpark of 4 or 5 different distinct targets within those 2 projects. And all of that should amount to somewhere in the ballpark of about 10,000 meters worth of drilling. So it'll be a very active year for us. The drill programs will run right through the calendar year, is my expectation. And so, of course, along with that, we'll have a steady flow of news and catalysts and hopefully some positive results that come out the back end of that.
And I'm assuming the nice thing about working in the Caribbean is that you can work all year round.
Yeah, there's a bit of a rainy season in the fall. It doesn't impede our ability to work. It just means it just gets a bit wet and it kind of slows down activity a little bit in terms of mobilizing. But no, it's a great place to be. We can drill and explore year round. And specifically at this time of year, we've got a lot of runway before that rainy season. So we've got a good sort of 6 months or so here where we can be very active in what I would consider to be sort of the opportune time of year.
And now, on the granular project level, in mid-January, the company performed a geophysical survey at targets in the Wanda Herrera project. What did the survey identify? Yeah,
we had done prior work that delineated geochemical anomalies or target areas on the project, and the next step of that, or the next layer of sort of science, if you will, is to go over those same areas and conduct the geophysical surveys that you're talking about. And what we're looking for is basically whether or not we get some sort of a charge reading, a chargeability reading below surface, especially if that's situated right underneath the gold and copper at surface. And so we did that geophysical surveying over 4 different distinct geochemical anomalies. And as we had hoped, we did see that chargeability signature sitting underneath the geochem at surface. And quite large areas, areas stretching kilometer and a half, in strike and 400 or 500 meters in width. So big targets, big anomalies, and in most cases in areas that have never been drilled. So these are areas that have now sort of taken that last step towards a drill stage, and the only thing left to do with all of those targets is to drill them.
And you mentioned that you also have another project, and you released some news from the Pablo Grande project, where you were reviewing some data. What was the data showing you?
Yeah, the project had been, it's 100% owned by Precipitate, but going back to 2020, we entered into an earn-in agreement with Barrick because the project does surround Barrick's Pueblo Viejo mine in that country, and so they were sort of a bit of an obvious partner for exploring, and during a difficult time going back to 2020 when the markets were a little bit more lean, the ability to have Barrick spend the money and utilize their in-country and regional expertise was helpful to us. So they spent about $7 million there. They did do some drilling. In the end, they gave the project back to us last April. And it was during that data review of saying, okay, they've spent money, they've done work, let's take a look at what really is in the data package. We identified something that we thought had been either overlooked or underappreciated by Barrick. We went and followed that up with our own, again, geophysical surveying, looking for that chargeability anomaly in an area that's located about 800 meters to a kilometer away from one of the largest gold mines in the world. And sure enough, we again identified that strong chargeability anomaly at surface, sitting somewhere between 100 meters and maybe 350 meters, so we would consider that quite shallow. And again, we don't see from the historic drilling any drills that intersected this new anomaly. So it's an untested, new large anomaly situated in a highly prospective area next to a big gold mine, and we plan to drill that in this quarter.
It's an exciting discovery.
Yeah, absolutely.
Looking into Q2 and beyond, what are some of the catalysts investors should be watching out for?
Yeah, well, like I said before, this is really going to be an active year for drilling for us, and that really is sort of the phase at which the junior exploration industry, things get the most exciting when you're drilling and looking for new discoveries. And this will be exploration drilling, discovery type drilling. Again, most of these targets have never been drilled before. So any success that we have with the drill bit would be a major discovery for us, and then we would look on the back of that to do more delineation type drilling, where we try to find sort of the edges of any mineralization we find. So, we're going to start out here this quarter with the commencement of drilling at Pueblo Grande, as you mentioned. That will run somewhere in the ballpark of 2 or 3 months in terms of completing that drill program. During that time, we'll be prepping up for a number of different targets at Wanda Herrera. And with the expectation that being somewhere in and around, sometime around, let's call it May, we were maybe then able to deploy drills to Wanda Herrera, and that will be a program that should run through the balance of 2026 and perhaps beyond. What comes out of the back of that in terms of results and catalysts and news is all going to be dependent upon what kind of assays we see from the labs. Mm-hmm. But we've got lots of targets, and so there's lots of work to be done, and obviously lots of work has the potential anyway to generate lots of results.
Yeah, you'll have to come back and give us an update.
Happy to do so.
It was lovely to speak with you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Thanks. Once again, I'm Georgia Williams, and that was Jeff Wilson, President, CEO, and Director of Precipitate Gold.